Hey friends, well I am here with Maria Ahmad, Master's in Student Affairs at Northern Illinois University, undergrad at Ohio State, was the coordinator of student life and campus diversity at Indiana University in Kokomo, Indiana, and is currently the Assistant Director for Leadership and Involvement at the Multicultural Student Center at UW-Madison, University of Wisconsin. I want you to tell me about your love for NSYNC.
Well, it's a love that I have moved beyond, but when that comes on, I know it.
Right, you
Justin
know,
Timberlake all the way still. Um,
were you
yeah.
at a pivotal point in your life when we were introduced to the voices of the fantastic boy band?
I was like in third and fourth grade, and I remember in like fourth grade, you earned like money and like doing like getting good grades, like fake money, classroom money, and I spent
Yeah,
all my money on an NSYNC poster, and I tried to put it up in my room, and my dad's like, "What? Who are these guys? Why are you putting them on your wall?" um, so then I just like kind of put it up in my closet, and nobody else saw it except for me, which
right.
was just
That's
fine.
okay. You had your own relationship. That's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
And your life has changed since then. Now you're in your space. You're at home today, where many
Yeah.
of us are. Tell me about your background.
I'm in my kids' room, and so we have a bunk bed in the back,
Uh huh.
and it's actually a full-on full, so we're not twins. So I'm that's kind of cool, and you can see the stars in the background. That I
Yeah.
bought at Target, of course, when it was
Uh-huh.
50% off in the bullseye area,
Uh-huh.
which is definitely my favorite pastime is to go there, and
That's great.
yeah.
So now we see you as a mother, not just the third grader who's in love with NSYNC. I do want to dig in on your role in the Multicultural Student Center because you have an amazing reach right now with the folks. You said you've been getting a lot of engagement. Some of your stuff's getting opened a lot, like when you are posting on social media. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think social media, I mean, everything that we're doing virtually right now is
Yeah.
what we should have been doing regardless of COVID, right? Like, I think when people think about 2020 and flying cars, we didn't get the flying cars, but we should have already been doing all the online things, right? So I
Sure.
think this is really catching us up where we need to be. And so when we talk about social media, it's a form of engagement, right? We always look at events and how many people are coming to events, but social media is getting your point across still, right? Like you're still getting that impact in a different way. And I think we're getting a lot because one, students are looking for something,
Yeah.
something that's streamlined because there's a lot of information out there, right? And
Right.
so it gets overwhelming when you're trying to learn about something or read or watch something. You're like, where do I even start? So that's kind of something that we've kind of started is a what to watch or what to read Wednesday. Where we post podcasts, movies, books, articles to read on a certain topic. So that way, if somebody's just starting from scratch or just like, I don't even know where to go, here's like, 5 things you can start with right here. Um,
That's great. And that's a consistent program. That's what to watch Wednesday.
yeah.
And
So we,
your students can always go to that specific post and know that there's going to be value, a
yeah.
learning, a learning something, right?
Yep. And we work with our student interns to come up with that too. So it's not
Right.
like me thinking this is cool and engaging, but it's, somebody who's their peer who hopefully can also have a better tap
Right.
on that.
Right. And the content, I mean, I want to talk about this in both directions because I know that you've got these interns doing research to find the information. How do they know that where they're getting their facts from? And I'm jumping early onto this conversation because I think it's going to sort of be thematic to what we talk about.
Sure.
Like where are your interns getting their information to share on social media that is then because it's coming from the University of Wisconsin, because it's coming from your office, the Multicultural Student Center.
Mhm.
I trust you.
Mhm.
You're an educational established place and your university supports you, so the voice that you're bringing forth, right? So your interns are really the connection to where are they getting their info?
Sure, yeah. So they do take a lot of time to kind of make sure they've at least read or watched what they're talking about, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's one place to start. The other point that we're trying to also emphasize is most of the things that we're promoting are, content created by people of color because that's not always promoted. If you have those kind of articles coming out from, the dean of students office or UW at large, a lot of times it's some artists may be left out. And so we're also emphasizing that this may not be your like blockbuster of the year and getting awards, but they could be low key things. They could even be works made by students, right?
Right.
So that's part of it too, is like, is there a connection to whoever, is looking that up? It's
Art is
connected to the
educational.
theme. It's
Yeah.
connected, like, so it could be like a short film made by like a graduate from 3 years ago who is not necessarily like getting awards or even like has like a full production, but something that they've created.
Right. Okay. Hey,
And the thing about like, and that's the thing too, like we're not saying this is 100% like what you need to believe or think. We're
right.
open to conversation, right? If something is like, hey, we don't really like, the idea on this or the concept of that, because we know we're not trying to cultivate a mindset, right? And so we really are just trying to show different perspectives. So it could be
Yeah.
a story that's conflicts with the story from last week, but it's still a story that's true.
You have another thing something on Thursdays or something on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. Tell me
Yeah, we
about
have
that.
think about it Thursday. So
Think about it Thursday.
part of our office is social justice work, and so this is more the higher ed student affairs part of it, of like using different terms. What is privilege? What is open space or brave space, and things like that, where there's these terms that we often throw out in student affairs that are just like,
Yeah.
hey, everybody should use these words, but we don't really get into it, and especially for students, and we're trying to create a space where we can have this conversation. It becomes a roadblock. Like, if I don't know what you mean by inclusion versus diversity versus multicultural, I'm not really going to engage in the conversation. And I think a lot of times, even as staff, we have this expectation that we're all on the same page on every issue, right? And we're not.
Right. Sure.
And so how do we have that conversation without making it feel like this is one way of thinking, that's how we all think? So breaking down some of those barriers of, here's like vocab that you may hear from our workshops or the work that we do, and this is what we mean by it.
Yeah, language is really important to understand to join the conversation. And you're right. But in any situation, even with kids, and I'll relate this to just growing up, going into a new environment or moving into a new environment, when somebody talks about something, we interpret the word based on things that we already know, but it could actually mean something completely different to the group that's using it, right? And yeah, so really, that's nice that you're helping clarify not just the words, but the way they're being defined by the groups using them.
Right, exactly. And I think a great example would be like, right now, what do we use, people of color, or are we using by POC, right? BIPOC, which a lot of people have may seen, or Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? To signify
right.
the different challenges, struggles, and stories that the different communities have. But a lot of people may not know what that is. I know, and I think this kind of goes with the social media, is like, my feed is going to look very different than your feed, right? And
Right.
what I think is like, oh my gosh, can you believe this is happening? You may not even know is happening, right? Like,
Right.
our feed is catered to our searches, our voices, right? They hear us all the time. And if we're all having different conversations. I just bought a kitchen counter island thing. You probably didn't, right? And so I keep getting these ads for that.
Right.
You're getting ads for something else. And so
Right.
I think that point is to show that, hey, you may not be seeing this term being used, but our office is going to be using it. So when you interact with us, this is what we mean by it.
Right, absolutely. I mean, full disclosure, like, you're the first person, and I pretend to know things. Like, I want to be an aware person in the world.
Sure.
But you said BIPOC, and I was like, what's the BI? Like,
Yeah.
I got, so this is really like, I've interviewed 50 people, and you are the first person to mention BIPOC, because not that we weren't talking on that topic, but it's awesome to learn every time. Do we have a visitor?
Yes, we do.
Yay!
He's leaving.
He can come in. It's okay. We've
There's
had
food all over his mouth. He does not need to be on camera right now.
How old is he? How old is he?
He's 2.
Oh, that's awesome.
So.
We have had, in other interviews, we've had other visitors.
Oh yeah.
It is okay. We are like that right now. Any other higher ed pro or advisor that's watching this, totally, like, any stay-at-home. Yesterday,
Yes.
Yesterday I was on a call with a school, and the advisor was just. They also have a very young child, and they were.
Yeah.
Not having their favorite of days.
Yep, that happens. Yeah.
All right. So helping understand language is the Thursday.
Yes. So think
Right?
about it Thursday.
Helping me and everyone else in the world understand what it means to be an ally. Like, that's a word that, right? And you would help define that. Could we do that now? Could you tell me what
talk about that.
what am I? What does it mean to be an ally?
Yeah, I think that word is another one of those words that we use a lot, and it's I think a symbolic thing where a lot of times we're putting these, especially in our offices, right? We put these stickers on our door or like print out these things like I support these communities, I support that community. But I think a lot of times it comes down to what do you know about it, right? Like what do you actually know about that community versus like, yes, we should support these communities. Yes, there are issues and there's struggles and there's injustice, but now so we start with ourselves, right? So we in our office we start with self, systems, and then skills. So
Mhm.
self, what interaction do I have with people who don't look like me, right?
Yeah.
On a genuine level, right? So me and you can be friends on Facebook, we are, right?
Yeah,
And so
right.
maybe there's some things that I share that you see that you're like, wow, I never heard of it. But if we
Right.
weren't even friends, right? Like if you never took a chance to like, hey, what's your name, what do you do, then
Yeah.
you're going to have a single mindset and single thing that maybe, you know, most
Right.
people on your feet are going to have. So that's the first step, is like, what am I actually doing to get out of my comfort zone and learn?
Right.
And I'd say even for my own identities as being a Muslim woman, my parents are from India, they're immigrants. So a lot of different identity intersections, of course. I'm not expecting everybody to know every single thing about me, but when I say like, oh, hey, my hijab, this or that, I'm talking about my scarf, and like, somebody should be able to know that, or if they don't know, they can be like, let me know what it's called, let me Google it, like that's our good
Right.
friend.
Yeah.
um Versus just being like, I don't know what that is, and like just dismissing it, because you're dismissing a part of me, right? So I think
Right.
that's the biggest part of being an ally, is not just dismissing parts of me, this idea of being colorblind, or just like, I just see you as a human, because all these things make me part of who I am. And so especially for serving students, to know what does a student need, you have to know a little bit about maybe their community or their background, and having those conversations. And
Right.
then, so that self, and then system is like, there's things that are not you as Jason can have an impact on, but because we live in where we live in the world, our country, or this, you know, the systems that we're part of, affect people differently, right? So it's
Yeah.
not some individual person being the cause of something, but there's a system, and just to recognize that, right? And nobody's saying you have to, you know, lose your job and do all the things to change the system, because it's not going to happen overnight, but just being
Yeah.
aware and cognizant of that.
Right.
And then the last thing is skills of like knowing the vocabulary, you know, when is the right time to have different conversations, right? Like, get to know somebody before you start asking them very personal questions, like
Yeah.
some human interactions, if some people just don't have those skills. So kind of
Yeah.
cultivating that into our students to have those conversations.
Already today, I'm glad that I've learned something new. Right. You know, so this is every time I have a conversation, I feel I'm closer to getting smarter, and then every conversation I have, I realize how little I know. Right.
Well,
But it's
that's
and
good. That's a good realization. Like, and
that's
that's,
the
I think
self
that's important.
that's the self part of it.
Yeah.
That's really the self part of it, and being able to say, because you're very lucky, I think, that you live in Madison and that you have so many neat multicultural things at your fingertips. And somebody in New York City might say, "Oh gosh,
Right.
Madison was like so backwoods,"
Yeah.
but somebody in Kokomo would say like
Right.
Madison's the big city, and you
Yeah.
know, so there's and the truth is we have higher ed professionals in every kind of town in this
Right.
country, right?
Yep.
And our experiences are all different. But if we continue to search for that questioning, that self awareness of, am I even friends with a Muslim woman on Facebook? Like,
Yeah.
have I even asked the question? Like, yeah, I mean, thank you. I want to be TikTok famous is something you've said.
Yeah.
Tell me why you want to be TikTok famous.
Um, the real answer, or like my fluff? The, you know, it goes together. Let's say that.
Yeah.
You know, they make a lot of good money if you get
Oh,
up there,
okay.
you
All right.
know.
All right.
And I feel like I don't really have a guarantee on in student affairs right now with who knows everything that's happening.
Right.
So if I have something fun to lean on, that'd be great. Or if it's just an extra income, that'd be nice. But also to use my creativity. I think it's such a
Yeah.
fun place, like really a place to build community. Like it's been, especially I think as a parent right now, that's been
Right.
like something I've really been connecting with, of just like, okay, work from home situations that other parents are going through, and making fun of it and making light of it, and also learning things on there too. Like, here's a hack that, you know, you watch in 15 seconds and you're like, you're good. So
Right.
it's not
Right.
very long, and um, I think there's just so much creativity out there, and there's so much you can do, and that kind of is just highlighting the role of social media again, right? Like, of
Yeah.
learning, but also learning in a way that's different than a classroom or just
Yeah.
a lecture.
But you've always been a content creator. Like you are a follower of social media platforms and people, but you've also been a real creative force in your life, right? So you really enjoy the creation of new things.
Yes, I do. I think there's so much. I think like reading about it, even like, video is not even the future. The video is like already the past. Like we're beyond that. You have to know how to use the filters. You have to know how, what's trending. And, I
Yeah,
asked one of my interns, I'll make sure that like the MSc at their office be on TikTok. They're like, no, it's way too fast. Like we have to have a whole dedicated person to be, up to date with what's trending and do the
right,
trends, do the dances or whatever the transition things are. And like,
right,
and that's how fast the world is moving. That's the thing too,
right,
right? I think we need
right.
to all just catch up and also be aware, like, be open to trying new things. And also when my kids are getting on social media, they're just 5 and 2, but I want to be that, I want to be there with them, so I don't have
Right.
to be like, I have no idea what they're doing or anything like
Right.
that. So
Right. And I think that I mean, even in all the work that you've done, I'm going to put my own spin on this, that you want to be TikTok famous to promote what you're already promoting, which
yeah, I
is,
think exactly. I mean, TikTok, any of these social medias, they're stories, right? And
yeah,
I think I have a story, and that's a very basic story, but I think that humanizes people, right? Like
right,
I'm the most, I would say, average Muslim American Desi millennial mom out there. Like those are all my identities, and I'm not too rich, and I have this unexpected lifestyle. I'm not like, I'm feel, I'm giving this glimpse into a story that people may not know of
right,
anybody else who's has any of those identities, right? And so
right,
I think that's what it is. It's all storytelling, right? And that's what
right,
people
right,
connects people.
right. How do we, I'm going to bring us back around to where we sort of started talking about the misinformation and where your interns are making sure they're going to get information from trusted sources. I trust your university to do research. I trust your university. I trust that they've hired people who are doing research and sharing, if not individual stories, at least things that have been researched. You're sharing of your own experience, right? When you're doing that in your own Muslim woman in America, in Madison, Wisconsin, mom,
Yep.
millennial story. Um, but there's a lot that gets shared that's just believed, but it's not helping move the
Yep.
world forward in the way that you want to, or the way that I want to, or the way that many higher ed professionals do. And how do we decipher between the fact and the fiction, or the fact and the other version of somebody else's world?
I think it all comes down to, I mean, you can really look anything up and you can spin any story the way you want it to, right? I can give you
Yeah,
a fact and emphasize different parts of it and makes it a completely different
yeah,
story, right? And so I think that's the crucial part of who is saying it, right? Like where is it coming from? So being at a research institution, like we had the researchers on our literal campus who are putting the articles out that everybody's sharing. So why
right,
not talk to them, make that connection between
right,
like the student affairs and academic affairs side of it. So that's actually something we're looking into, starting like a video series or a podcast of having a student leader, kind of interviewing a student leader and a faculty member at the same time, and kind of just seeing like the different places they get information or how they spread information, right? Because it's going to be different,
yeah,
just depending on what your lifestyle is at the moment. So I think that's part of it. Also being aware, like nothing's going to be 100% fine, and that's okay, right? There may
right,
be an article we share that, there's something that was incorrect in it, and being able to apologize for it. I think
right,
that's the next thing, right? Like I think right now we're in this cancel culture. One person makes a mistake, and you could never, you should not follow them anymore.
right,
You lose all credentials. And so I think, especially in an academic institution, right, like that's something we can't really foster because we are learning. And
yeah,
that's what I tell students too. Like, if you're gonna be, coming to a workshop with us and you say something that may be completely inappropriate, right? Like, I can give you an example. Like, hey, can you just take your hijab off? Can I see your hair real fast? Like, that's really to me equivalent of you saying, can you just like take your clothes off real fast? Like,
right,
so.
right,
But that student may not know, right? They may be well intended, and I can tell
yeah,
them in this space versus when they ask that at a job interview and they never get a job, right? And
right,
so
right,
I think
right,
that's the part of the college readiness for the real life that we say, right? Like, how are we preparing them for these tough conversations, or,
right.
and if we're not, then we're doing an injustice to them. If we're just going to keep this conversation simple and easy, we're not getting to the deep parts of it, to how to have those
Yeah,
conversations, which they
yeah.
may run into later.
Hmm. Have you been asked that before?
Not by like adult kids, not by like college students, but like like when I used to volunteer for like girls and boys plays, like kindergartners would say that, but you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
kindergartners. So
Right,
but
right, right.
no, I mean, I have luckily never had like that kind of interaction. I think the thing that came closest to even professional wise was like my third week of work here at UW, a parent called and they're like, so I heard there's a Muslim Student Association on campus. I'm like, yeah, pretty much every campus in America has one. And they're like, well, I am not sending my kid to UW because of that. And I'm like, okay. And I have like no
So,
idea what
so
you want
you,
me to do about that.
let me clarify. A student's parent called you, not knowing it was you,
No.
because you picked up the phone and you sound like a millennial,
Yeah.
you
They
know.
don't know that I'm Muslim or anything, like,
Right,
and they're
right. So
just saying
and,
this.
and so a parent called the university and complained that there's a Muslim student association.
Yeah.
That's
Like
brilliant.
literally.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I apologize for some Americans, man. It's just crazy.
And that's the thing too, right? Like we let, you know, we're talking about the situations like, you know, it's, you know, really coming from a lot of different places. I know like in Kokomo, there were
Yeah,
staff members who are like, you know, me just sharing something that you shared is like a, you know, it's putting me at a thing with my family or friends because they are completely like not even just like oblivious but anti it, right? Like, and so I think for everybody has a different space where they're at. Like not
yeah,
everybody can do
yeah.
the same kind of stuff that everybody's doing. Like you have to know where you're at in your circle and like who you can influence, who you can't, and then you move on.
Right, but do you think that from your office, like you're like, yeah, we can influence this group, but we can't influence that group. But isn't it going to be great for that mom to someday meet you and have a conversation with you?
I don't know if like you know, I'm thinking if you are not even understanding that Muslims live everywhere and you think like this may be the only MSA and Muslim Student Association ever, you're gonna be shocked when your kid goes to any campus and there will be a Muslim Student
Right,
Association.
right,
um, I think that's part of it, like of where you're living, and you know, there's not diversity everywhere.
right.
But I think that's the importance of the global world, right? Like
Yeah,
we are everybody's everywhere, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the thing too, right? Some people will be open to a conversation and you know, and some people will be to your face, but and that sometimes that's good enough. Like I'm probably not gonna meet that mom ever again. It's okay if you were just cordial to my face, that's good enough. But there
Right,
have been anti remarks to your face, then you're like, I don't have time for this, I don't have the energy for this.
right.
Like
Yeah, it's not something you need to do every day.
right.
It's not your place in the world to be teaching the world every day. You've
Right.
got
And that's kind of really what we're doing in the Multicultural Center is like
right,
trying to have that burden off of students of color when you're just trying to get your degree. And there's researchers on campus who can tell you about the, you know, injustices in the system. Why does
right.
a student have to do that, right? And so how
Yeah,
can we connect those students who are having these conversations to somebody whose job it really is
right,
to do that?
right, right. Um, So
Sorry.
no,
I
no, no. I'm glad we're having this conversation, but I also realized that I made a, you know, the interviewer faux pas where I had an opinion, right? Where I was like, that's crazy. That mom's crazy. And I'm not supposed to say that as an interviewer, but I'm learning, my
sure.
friends out there in the virtual world. I'm learning to listen and ask questions, but I do have a strong opinion on this topic, you know, because I have, and I think maybe I'm going to personalize the interviews that I have family members who actively choose to fuel their fire from sources that aren't the logs they're throwing into their fire aren't positive logs. And so that the flame that's coming off their fire is not moving the world forward in the inclusive and kind and friendly way that I want to raise my family in.
Yep, sure. And I think it all comes down to human nature, honestly. Like those articles or videos that you're kind of alluding to are sensationalized, right? And
Yeah.
so, have you ever watched The Great Hack? It's a documentary on Netflix.
No, tell me about it.
Okay, I wish I got paid for them as many times as I promote them,
Okay.
but it will help you truly understand the last 5 years of our country, right? Like
Okay.
it's not just that, you know, millennials didn't vote or people of color didn't vote or anything like that. Everything is a system, right?
Yeah.
And social media is also a system. It is also a money making machine. So as I mentioned before, like whatever I'm going to search is going to come on my feed,
Sure.
right? And so if you're going to keep sharing those articles, you're going to get that fire is being fed. It's not a coincidence. right? And so that's part of it, to understand like there's not just like this, oh, I have this mindset. You're being fed the mindset, right? And so that's the issue, I think, that's in like the debates on congressional courts right now, of like, what is Facebook's role in all this, right? Are you going to put fake ads or unfact checked things, right? And so that all impacts everything, because if what I'm sharing I think is fact, because I can only do so much, because I keep seeing it, so it can only be real. And that's the flaw of the system right now, right? And I think that's where that personal connection comes through. If I have a personal connection of 500 friends and 3 are different than me and sharing some articles, I may see one, right?
Sure.
I may not even.
If you're lucky, you may never see that in the feed, right?
Exactly. And so that's the issue. So we can't rely only on social media, right? You have to go beyond. You have to know people.
Right. And it's interesting because of those algorithms right now. I'm going to say something that if you're listening to this and you need positivity in your life, so I've done this not intentionally, but I tend to watch a lot of drum solos on YouTube. Like when I take a break and I'm working alone and I'm like eating some food, I will go to YouTube and I will type in drum solo. Yeah. So my feed gives me more drum solos. Like I get to watch really great rock drummers play drum solos, and that's what is feeding my off time. So my brain is being filled with really cool drummers doing drummy things, right? Yeah. So I would say to anybody out there, if you know that all the stuff that you're seeing is like heavy weight on you, for a couple days, just look for things like kittens playing, or puppies, or something that'll.
Or you ever talk about like diversifying your viewpoint, like follow some artists that you don't actually have never really listened to, right? Like follow those artists, and especially if they are like maybe different identities than yourself, you will learn things. Not only enjoy yourself through the entertainment of good music or good art, like you may learn something that you may have never seen before. And so that's an easy way to kind of diversify your information. Right.
I mean, well, because yes. I'm talking about drum solos, and you're working at a much higher level than I am already.
Even those drum things, right? Like who's playing the drums, right? They could be different people at different times. So
no, but it's really important. You're right. Following, but that's saying to somebody, hey, if you think that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, check that fact and maybe follow, or even there we have a visitor, or even go and read about a movement from the source of the movement, not from somebody outside of the movement giving an opinion. Can we meet who you have there?
Yes. This is Musa.
Hi, Musa.
Can you wave?
How are you today? It's nice to see you. Your mom and I are having a really awesome conversation.
You want to dance? What?
I'll dance with you. I'll dance.
Go ahead, dance. Musa's getting more TikTok famous than I am.
We both have green shirts on. Musa, you have green and I have green. Wait, and I'll do a TikTok dance too if you teach it to me.
He's getting camera shy.
Nice to see you. Okay, I'm camera shy too. That's not true. All right, so we've learned a lot today with you, Maria, and just the importance of understanding the words that we use in our offices and in higher ed, and like words like ally. One of the things I meant to ask you is social construct. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what a social construct is?
Did you look that up on our Instagram? Because that was definitely our Think About Thursday about.
Was it really? No. No. I know that you're going to help me understand it, because it's something that because you go to work every day and you think about these things.
Sure.
Right? And so you're prepared to answer that question because you have students asking you the same thing. So today I'm your student.
Sure. So a social construct is really like, when we talk about it's society, if you want to break it down into one word, right? And it's changing all the time. Every space that you go to is going to be different. And you can look at it at a macro level of the global construct of things that we have, and then you can go into just our country, our state, our campus, right? A lot of times that we're looking at that. Every campus culture is different, and so how are things constructed in a way to, and not intentionally, usually not intentionally, but they benefit somebody in a different way, right? Okay. And that's the part that is crucial, is how we're looking at that. So it's a unsaid kind of governing or interaction way, right? When you start work at a new office, right? There's certain norms, right? Like I know in Kokomo, I'm like, you got to be there at 8 o'clock on the dot. Here at UW, I mosey on in at 9:30, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the construct of my office, right? And so,
Okay.
similarly, when you talk about like identities, they are these pieces that are constructed. Like, what is it? What is race, right? Like, if when we talk about biologically, we're all literally the same,
Yeah.
constructed the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
but as these ideas that serve as a foundation of that are made by society, and that's
Yeah.
always changing.
Right.
So even when we talk about language, that's part of the social construct. It's always changing, right? So you look back 30 years, we were definitely using different words.
Right. Right.
And so that's the thing. We always have to evolve with it's an evolving thing. And so to give that space to learn and understand where we're at right now.
Yeah. Okay. So just give yourself some space to understand that we are all part of our current.
Right.
We're living in a temporary space of our current social construct.
Right.
Right. I got it. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't want to take more of your time because I know it's late afternoon, and I know that late afternoon in my house is a time when either things go beautifully well or they go totally haywire. So, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
And I want to do another interview with you in like a month, or maybe sooner. Like I really think that we only sort of hit over I have a lot more questions.
And I'm sorry, I think I made it all very heavy.
Not at all. No, not at all. Not at all.
So,
I just think that there's, I've had other interviews with friends who we talked about games, right? So I think all these interviews are really important for everybody out there to listen to. But I'm really working very hard to ask the questions to help me and to help anybody else out there who, Maria, there are folks in our country who've never seen in real life a woman in a hijab. Okay, and that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So just having the conversation with you about and seeing your children and talking to you about NSYNC and that, yeah, that's my goal is to bring us all together. And the more
sure, I think like the biggest thing is like when we talk about something being normalized, and I can give you like a very parent example of like breastfeeding, something that sometimes when you say that people feel all awkward about it, but like that's something that was important to me. And so just seeing like how my cousins or my friends or family talked about it, like so casually, like it's a normal thing. Babies need to eat. This is how they eat. And so that's when I really learned what normalizing something would be, right? And so if I am working in a space, like it should just be normal for me to be there and not expect that I specifically always work with multicultural or marginalized students, right? I could be working in academic affairs. I could work in whatever, right? And so not being pigeonholed and just making it normalized that, okay, every kind of people can have any kind of job, or especially in student affairs. Like I think that happens a lot with POC is like, do you work at a multicultural center? Do you work with diverse students? And it's like, maybe I just work in financial aid. I don't know. And so that is part of I think the normalizing. And I know like sometimes it is a lot. Sometimes like I don't want to talk about myself so much. Like but I feel for myself personally, like the way that I put myself out on social media, I has accepted that role and embraced that role, right? And not everybody's gonna do that.
You did apply for and got a job in a multicultural center, like
And not only that, like I run my own social media and I'm talking, it's called The Maria and Omer Show, right? It literally has my name in the title. So I'm going to be talking about myself. That makes me, I feel comfortable doing that. But I have friends and family who are like, I would never do that. Like I'm an accountant, ask me about accounting and nothing else, right? And so like, that's the part too, right? You don't want to expect everybody to be, just because I'm sharing doesn't mean everybody is going to share about their hijab journey or their breastfeeding journey or anything like that, right? So I think I appreciate the platform and like I appreciate you asking the questions, and so I think that it's important. And yeah, so thank you.
No, thank you for your time, and we've learned so much, and I'm excited to watch this interview again. And it is nice to see such an awesome family member here with us today. And please, can I have a big dancey wave goodbye from?
Can you dance, Musa?
Yeah. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Bye.